Maybe while the rest of the world is singing about how it's the most wonderful time of year, you're feeling anything but joyful. Join us today as we have a real, honest talk about depression during the holidays. And we hope by the end of this that you will feel a little bit of hope and that you'll see that you're not alone.
Welcome to our podcast today. There are times where we are celebrating the holidays. They're coming around really quick. And some people, they're not as joyous during this holiday season, and because they might have depression or loneliness. And so we're going to talk about that and open the floor up to talk about maybe what are some of the reasons that happens. So I want everybody to introduce themselves. I'm Kathy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Ashley.
And so we're going to open up the floor to discuss this. Have there ever been a time where with the lights and the celebrations that you thought, why don't I feel that joy this Christmas? Anybody want to share about that?
Definitely. Yeah.
Can you talk about maybe what was going on that prompted that feeling?
Yeah, well, definitely for me, grief has played a big role in that, which we're going to talk about that in another episode. But yeah, that was the year that Christmas totally changed. And ever since then, it's kind of a reoccurring thing. It's getting a little easier with more time, but definitely, yeah, you feel like, why am I not, in the same mood as everybody else? You're just wondering, why is this not feeling like Christmas always felt before?
Right. Yeah, grief can do that. I've had my own experience with that. Yeah. When you lose somebody, either around that time or the first, especially the first ones after, it can be really difficult. Mm-hmm. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Ashley or Kyle, what's your story about depression during the holiday season?
So from my perspective, I know a lot of people are single moms or have joint custody or share custody, even non-custodial parents. It's a struggle around the holidays because maybe you don't have your child or they can't be around or there's something going on between parents or anger or arguing and things like that. And, there was a lot of Christmases and Thanksgiving in the 15 years that I had joint custody of my daughter that I didn't have her every year. And, a lot of people don't understand how that can affect you as far as how you feel about the holidays. And one of those aspects includes your family. So when people in your family are planning holidays and you don't have your child, how do you feel about, that or they get angry because I don't have my child and she can't attend something and it kind of turns into this big fight. And it just, escalates those depression and anxiety feelings, the loneliness, when you don't have your child during those times and you're alone, if you're a single mom and your kids aren't home and maybe you don't have family close, that can be lonely.
Especially the comparison.
Yeah.
I think with social media, we find ourselves comparing, everybody's posts to, oh, I wish I had that, or, why can't I do that? And so that can lead us to look inward and find that depression and deal with that loneliness.
I mean, even without, having something specific going on always, the comparison, it's the thief of joy, they say. And I don't know that there's ever a time that it's maybe more active than, look what I got, look what we're doing, look how we celebrate. And people should do those things. But if you've got, just anything going on in your life that can make that, even more complicated. It's so hard. One year, I remember I had just lost my job before the holidays. I was pretty newly married guy, like about a year after, you're really trying to make a good impression on your new family. And then you come around to Christmas and it's like, hey, yeah, I don't have a job of any kind. That was so hard. And I remember, more so than even just feeling like, it's hard to not feel like you've let some people down in some of those times. And that was a really hard year. And it was also a year too that I look back on and remember, like, man, how much the little things meant and how much just like, the gifts that are more about thoughtfulness than about how much money you spend. And so I can see some good things there as well too now. But when we were doing it, it was so hard.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. So even though we talk about some of the depression that happens during the holidays, some of it isn't really tied to the holidays in itself. This time of year, as the days grow shorter, it's darker out, it gets colder, some people suffer from seasonal affect. If you don't know what that is, it's where, your body is lacking some essential nutrients that during this time of year. So I highly recommend, getting checked out by your doctor and see if there is something lacking that maybe, a shot of vitamin D or spending some time under a sun lamp can help out.
Definitely.
I always double up the vitamin D during these winter months.
Yes, for sure.
That means I take multiple vitamin gummies. So.
And on the days the sun is shining, just like sitting in your car in the sunshine for a little while, just soaking it in. It's, definitely a lot easier to go for me on the sunshiny days. But the gray days just, make me feel very blah. But, yeah.
And I think one of the things that both of you, Kyle and Ashley, talked about was sometimes there's financial stress during the holidays, especially when there's, a job loss or being a single mom. Kind of talk about that and how that affects your depression during this time of year.
I know last week I went to go get something simple fixed on my car and they were like, actually, it's $2,000. Like, sometimes it's not even anything that and we can be safe this winter without this fix and it's going to be okay. But also sometimes it's just that feeling like you're behind or like, or like, man, I wish I had scheduled one more of these get-togethers with friends or one, like, I can already kind of feel that pressure intensifying right now.
Right.
I really had some low financial times when I was a single mom trying to pay for a place to live and provide and on a single income. And I remember times where, when you're buying groceries, I'm buying stuff for my daughter and I may not necessarily buy something for myself. There's times, and that happens to a lot of people. And, especially with presents and things like that, I've learned as I've gotten older that you really just need to give yourself a break. You don't have to go out and be extravagant. Your kids aren't going to remember most things that you buy them. Honestly, I couldn't tell you anything that I received as a child.
So true.
And honestly, if your child is under 5, they're gonna think Christmas is whatever day you tell them is Christmas. So if you want to wait until 2 days after Christmas so you can go and buy stuff on clearance, do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to know.
Yeah.
You can do that for birthdays.
Yes,
too.
birthdays, exactly.
Get away with it for a while.
Yes. So when, when I was talking about maybe not having your kids on the holidays, maybe you think of it that way. If you get them the weekend after, think of it as, you can go out and you can spend the same amount of money and get, maybe different things than maybe you would have been able to get before. So I've had experiences like that. And Kyle, for birthdays, definitely. Yeah. So there's just different ways that you can think about it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that just came to mind is like, buying little things throughout the year when you can, when there is a little bit of extra money, and then just making sure that you remember where you hid them.
Yeah.
I think my wife's been doing that because I've been forbidden from various sections of the closet.
Yeah. But I think Ashley's right. It's the experiences and the time together. And, for me, it's the memories of making the cookies or watching the movie, together on TV, or, it's not the things that cost, the gifts. It was just the quality time with people that really shapes us, I think. So that's very good.
And not underestimating homemade gifts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those are special.
Because sometimes those are, a little bit more special because there's actually some thought and love put into it.
Yeah.
And so those can be more meaningful than an extravagant gift.
But I also think it comes back to social media. You see what other kids get or what other families are doing. And honestly, if you want to take a break for the holidays, I think that's great.
Yes, I agree. That's
Absolutely.
a very healthy boundary to put in place for yourself, just to be like, nope, gonna limit, what I see, maybe starting like right at Thanksgiving till January, that's a great idea.
And that kind of ties into, excuse me, the next thing is like a lot of times during the holidays, we have these grand expectations of what we think it should be. And sometimes we need to maybe have realistic expectations because we can't control every situation.
Right. Yeah. Very, very true.
And so that ties into the whole social media about, this is what we've seen on social media. And so we want to do it just like this, or we've seen this on Pinterest. I don't know about you ladies or Kyle, if you're crafty like that, but mine never turns out the same.
Or even just the movies that we love, sometimes they set us up for a false expectation of how something's going to go.
Right.
And some of our favorite movies are the ones where things don't go like they should. And that's why we relate so well to those, but yeah, true. We're hard on ourselves.
Another thing that we might come up against during the holidays is family conflict. And you touched on that a little bit with, custody with your daughter and whatnot. Other times of family conflict that anybody has ever gone through during the holidays?
And we actually do a whole podcast episode on that too, just navigating family dynamics. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But yeah, it's hard to sit around the table and pretend like everything's normal when, the rest of the year it's been rocky, and those things don't just magically go away on Christmas Day, not. And then we feel guilty about feeling like we don't want to be with family when we think those are the people we should want to be around. But so it's tough.
And so one of the things that I'd like to kind of bring up for our listeners that might not understand or might not know if they have depression, what are some of the symptoms that you guys have experienced that have, led you to know that, okay, that depression is kicking in?
I know for me, when I'm struggling to enjoy my favorite things, or even if I find myself snappy with my favorite people, that's always a reason I stop and I think, how am I feeling right now? How down are we? That's some easier ones for me to catch. A lot of them are sneaky.
For me, it's isolation. So I work from home some, and then, that kind of keeps me inside. And then if I stop reaching out to friends, so, I might go weeks and maybe they don't recognize that I haven't reached out, in that long. But if I'm not reaching out to people, then I'm isolating myself. And another one that probably people don't want to talk about, but you stop taking care of yourself. You stop showering. You're not going anywhere. You're isolating. So there's no reason to take care of yourself, and for me, that makes me more depressed when I'm not taking care of myself. So you kind of get into this cycle where you're continually doing the things that make you depressed because you're depressed. And it takes, through a lot of growth, I'm able to recognize some of that. And after many years, to pull myself back out of it. But if you, especially with like seasonal depression, if you don't recognize those signs, you could be in a bad place quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing that might be a telltale sign is changes in appetite or sleeping patterns. So either sleeping too much or not being able to sleep at all, or perhaps overeating or just loss of appetite. So those are the things that, you experience with depression that might, be a telltale sign for you. Anything else that anybody's experienced with that?
I will say, along with taking care of yourself, if you are pretty active, if you stop being active, with like the winter or the colder months, if you're used to going outside and running or playing sports, then when it comes time for winter and it's dark all the time and you can't go outside, then that can contribute to that as well.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. So then what are some of the tips that you guys would share to kind of overcome this depression that might set in?
I like that Kyle said the vitamins, because I do think that affects us a lot. Like, what are we eating? What are we putting in our body? But along the same lines, what are we consuming, even for our minds, right? What shows are we watching? What music are we listening to? Because those things do feed our minds and our thoughts.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to listen to things that connect with us in our pain, but we also have to listen to the things that help to lift our spirits and bring us out of our joy and worship our Savior for, because He is the one that has defeated all of this, right? And He has the victory. And so we just need to make sure that we're not in the darkness, but we're actually reaching towards the light by doing some of these other things that we know are self-care, Yeah. Right. What about your little vibration plate thing? That's a really cool tool.
You like that thing?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. My son brought this thing home from school last year. This is just random, but they're able to like take something.
This is
off
not a
of an Amazon
sponsored
truck.
message.
It's just like we sign a little paper, and so he's able to pick something for himself and something to share with the family. And he picked this vibration plate. We didn't even know what it was, but you just stand on it, and like literally, I mean, and this is probably where I start a lot of days because, well, let me just say what it is. I mean, you stand on it and it shakes you. It sounds, there's little programs, it'll change speeds. Like literally, I will get on that thing when I just, it's so simple, but it's like, I just need to feel differently. I just need to feel something else.
It's kind of like a grounding kind of exercise,
just
right?
Anything besides the way I feel right now, I need to feel that. And so I'll get on that thing. You can, 10-minute version, 20-minute version. And I'll do that when it's like too cold to go for a walk, or I'll do that when I'm ignoring like riding the exercise bike, like I have been for a couple of weeks, if I'm being honest right now. Also, like I forgot, like it gets cold. Like I got in a good rhythm and then it got cold and I'm like, I don't know what to do now. So I can't do anything. I was too quick to go to that, but no, I'm so glad you mentioned that thing because I ignored that yesterday. So, but it's all about putting those things in as many places as possible to remind yourself. So I've been very aware. I've been ignoring these things for a couple of weeks, which is how we can get to. I hope someone needs to hear that because otherwise it's been a weird couple of weeks leading up to doing this podcast. But I love that thing. And like I said, just those little reminders to yourself in different places, like just like the dashboard of my car, or very thoughtful about what I look at when, like, what I see when I'm looking at my desk at work. Just like, what are the messages? What are you seeing? And what is reminding you of what's really true? Because as we get caught up in these things, that the reality is a lot of those messages we play back for ourselves, like they're not true. It's actually even trickier is when like they're half truths. I think that's the trickiest part, because that means we're not having the grace for ourselves. We're not seeing this even how, how a friend would tell us they see the situations we're in, and I think really like it's not how God sees the situations we're in. He sees, of course, the whole truth more than we can fathom, but it's important to know, like, he's chosen to love us all anyway, and that love is a free offer, and it's so good. Just have to remember that we choose it back to a lot of those days, but it's there.
It's interesting because our brains are designed to see what we look for. There's actually a technical term, it's called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, or the frequency effect. And so when you learn something, or you will begin to see it everywhere. And so I like what you said about, what you're seeing is going to influence how you're feeling. And kind of going along with that is the aspect of gratitude. So before we get to Christmas, we actually get to Thanksgiving first. And just sharing what you're thankful for, whether you're writing it down, whether you're making a list, whether you're keeping a journal, can change the way you think and can change the way you feel. And alongside that is worship. And so when we focus our attention on God, when we thank him for what he's done, for who he is, and we worship him, then we can't be depressed and worship and be thankful all at the same time.
That's good.
I think with Thanksgiving, I think it's important to stop and feel the seasons instead of rushing from one to the other. So maybe not starting Christmas as early, or giving yourself that time and space to be thankful for things before maybe you get super busy, just allowing you that space to have those thoughts.
Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah.
It's funny we're talking about this, because I reached out to a friend a couple of days ago, like a friend from high school. I've seen him a few times since then, but, not somebody I pretend to be like, best friends with. Anyway, he's in LA. He's an actor. And I just had to ask him the other day, because he's just been so relentlessly positive and everything. Like, I'm talking about social media now, which I barely look at. But when I do, I see like this old friend being so positive, and I'm like, this kid, he used to mope more than me. That's why we got along. We were like the kids in the corner. We were moping.
Was he a band kid?
He was, yeah. We were in percussion together. And I had to ask him, and I just kind of wrote it. I said, how did you, like, what happened? It's like, what happened to that kid? How did you find this out in LA of all places? And he shared two crazy things with me. One was that he was like sick right now, and still being that relentlessly positive. And I'm like, wow, I really want to know your answer now. That's what I felt like. But he actually brought up some brain science things as well, and talked about how it's been really crucial for him to catch himself in like cycles of complaint or complaining, and to stop those earlier. So like, look, we have to figure out, for ourselves, what actually maybe puts out some of those concerns as they happen. But, for me, I know it's so important to find, the most gracious explanation you can fathom for what, is going on in your life, or what someone else is doing to you or not doing to you, or just what you're experiencing, and just try to believe it instead of try to, and look, sometimes we're having a bad week, and sometimes it really does feel like the world's out to get us. But, it's all about maybe ending some of those things that otherwise would start to, really connect together and be even harder to break out of.
Just kind of spirals you down, doesn't it? Yeah. That's good.
What I'm hearing you say is to acknowledge what you're feeling, call it out. say it out loud, write it down, because I feel like if you can get it out and you can get it to where you can see it or hear it, then okay, now I can look at this and see what the truth of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love to try to poke holes in it after that. Like, and I'm built that way anyway. But what is the truer view? What is the truer perspective here? What is God's perspective? How does He see these things?
Yeah, having that conversation even with God. So if you need to vent, God should be the one you're venting to, because the Holy Spirit will poke those holes for you.
Yeah.
In that conversation. But yeah, I just think about the Psalms being like a perfect example of how to do that. If you need help with like how to do that, even just praying some of those Psalms. I mean, there's some really low points in those passages, but then He always finds a way to point back to the faithfulness of God. And it's just so beautiful because, God's not afraid of our depression or our negative feelings. He actually probably thinks it's really silly when we don't acknowledge that to Him, and we're praying and we all of a sudden turn into this other person, So I think, we just end up with, releasing those feelings to Him, and then Him like just filling us with this new perspective, new strength, new hope for the situation. So
I'm reminded of that story in the Old Testament where David and his men were out in a battle, and when they got back to Ziklag, the Amalekites had come in and had burned the city and taken their wives and children captive. And there's a verse in there that says, David encouraged himself in the Lord. And I just think that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
And so one of the things also, and I think you talked about, how when you're depressed, you isolate, and I think connecting with others is a really big, important thing for us to do. And so who is one person that you can reach out to during the season to remind you that you're not alone?
Well, I'm just going to say Kim Taylor, because her office is right next to mine.
We do. Yeah.
I think
I said that to be silly, but it's true.
It's true.
I mean, be a friend, or even a counselor.
Absolutely.
Someone that, isn't in your family or close to you. Maybe you have someone, maybe it's someone at church that you've known for a long time, that maybe you have in your cell phone, but you've never like reached out to them, but you've thought about it before. I think that's always a good time to do something like that.
And don't ignore those little promptings.
Oh yeah.
Because those are totally Holy Spirit, saying, hey,
and more than likely when you do reach out, you're going to hear them say, me too, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like we're not meant to carry these things alone.
I would say, there's a temptation when you get to the holidays, even like if you're somebody who meets with a therapist, to be like, oh, slow down. And, there's just all these natural stop signs to meeting. I would just say, maybe go ahead and schedule one, maybe keep one on the books for right now.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Have one to look forward to on the other side of the holidays,
absolutely.
just in case.
Yes,
for sure. Yep.
And so, anything else that anybody would like to close us out with?
What Kim said about that we're not meant to do things alone. I think that's very important around the holidays, especially to just know that, you can't do everything on your own. We're not made to do that.
Right.
Right. So going maybe to volunteer somewhere or joining a small group or a support group, something like that, you can reach people that maybe feel the same things that you do. And I always say, you can't be too proud to ask for help.
Right. Yeah.
I would say, to be open to the people that that God does put right in front of your face. It might not always be people you've been open to. It might not be people who have like traditionally been your best friends even. But I can think of several times over the holidays, or even like, I can just think of so many times where we're feeling lonely, and I can think of several faces as I say this right now. I'm like, man, I totally pushed that person away though when they tried to show up for me, and it's like I was being picky about it or something, and like, well, I want it to be them, and like I don't really know what we're doing then. We're not, but man, just some of the most unexpected places and unexpected people have just. I think they've been such, God sent them just at the right time. And I would say it starts with crying out that you are lonely. Cry out to God. Tell him.
So I have a very good example that goes along with your story. I have a friend, a high school friend, and she had posted on social media, that they were struggling and stuff. And I reached out and I offered to help buy groceries, things like that. And she said, well, I didn't put that out there to ask for help. I just, am asking God to help me. And I'm thinking I'm here because God put it on my heart that I, am supposed to do this. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like, that happens, and you should definitely be open to accepting that.
Yep. Yeah.
It reminds me of the old joke about the guy that was in the flood and he was sitting on top of his house.
Yes.
And a boat came by. He goes, no, God's going to save me. Another boat comes by. No, God's going to save me. Helicopter comes by. No, God's got this. And he dies. And he's like, God, what happened? He goes, well, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is exactly what I was thinking of.
Yes.
So.
That's it. Yep. He provides.
And so there is a real possibility during the holiday season, especially, that people just feel like they're so down and they don't see a way out. And so they might consider taking their own lives. And I would just encourage anybody to reach out, to either call 911, or the suicide hotline has changed and it's now 988. And so, or reach out to a pastor, a friend, reach out to somebody.
Yes.
That
Please.
Please.
So that this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's just important for everyone to know that you're not alone, that you're loved and valued. And even if you don't have hope for your situation, just tell one person and see what God can do with that, because there is still hope, and there's a way He can lead you out of the darkness. And I think that's why part of the Christmas story was a star, right?
Absolutely.
And Jesus is the light of the world, and thankful for His light and the way that He's still guiding us today to His truth.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you, Kathy. And Kyle, how about praying us out? You feel okay with that?
I'll do that, yeah. Father, God, thank you for being close to the brokenhearted. Thank you for that. When I feel invisible, you see me. You see us where we are. You send people to love us to where we are, whether we are always able to see it or not. God, you let us experience the fact that we matter to you again and again and again. And I just pray, God, that we would believe it. I pray that we would defeat any voices in our heads that say we don't matter. God, we do. You've put your image in us, and that is it's more than enough for value. But you created each of us with talents, abilities, perspectives that are so crucial to share with others in the world around us. And just pray, God, that we would experience your nearness this holiday season. Perhaps maybe you'd send it when we least expect it, when we're maybe at our most hopeless. God, I have experienced your hope again and again, and I pray that for for those of us here this holiday season, for anyone listening or watching. We pray all of those things today. In Jesus' name.